Chapter 5 Action Near Uluru. While Leo and I put up the tent, Rookie climbed a few meters into one of the trees in the stand that was shielding us. Moments later, he jumped down, zipped to Blackie's trunk, returned with a small spyglass, and climbed back up the tree. Hey, guys, the blueberries moved out of sight behind the trees. I see a bit of dust and suspect we may have located our quarry. Let's eat a quick meal, sleep until, say, 3 a.m., and go check it out. Well, folks, the cold sandwich from Domino Dundee's was nothing to sing about, but my sleep came easier than I expected, and I didn't have any weird dreams like Rookie's. When Leo's alarm buzzed in the middle of the night, all three of us woke refreshed. Rookie said we'd move fast with long strides until we were about 15 minutes from the far stand of trees, and he asked us to check that none of our gear would rub or otherwise make noise. Then we'd moved to shorter strides, holding an erect posture with knees bent and our weight toward our backsides. We'd follow the American Indian stalking practice of first lightly placing our toes on the ground to avoid the noise of a stick breaking or a stone crunching before we lowered our heels and added our full weight. Rookie took the lead, I followed, and Leo took up the rear. After 20 minutes, we could see the outline of the stand of trees ahead, and Rookie stopped us for a short break. Leo was happy for the respite from his heavy backpack, and when we resumed, we stealth-walked and saw the moon starting to rise. It was eerie not knowing what lay ahead. Would we find the bad guys we expected? Were there traps waiting for us? Were there guards to spot us? Hey, would we find Fund? Or worse, would he find us? If we were right about this being the evil gang's camp, we hoped we'd surprise them, disrupt their plans, and bring them to justice. But might this little hike in the moonlight be the end of all of us? We reached some short bushes and stopped to peer ahead through what I could now tell were eucalyptus trees, or as they're colloquially known in the outback, gum trees or sticky bark trees. The moon was higher now, and we could make out what we thought could actually be a parking lot. Dozens of white vans, just like the ones that brought the blueberries to our fungo practice, were there. Yeah, we were worried. We all searched for signs of activity and found only the stillness of the night. Rookie whispered, "Let's move behind the tree over there. It'll give us a view of what's on the far side of these vehicles." Our careful, stealthy advance brought us close enough to see two quick-built aluminum buildings and a sea of tents. There was still no sign of activity, which I suppose would be normal for a group in the outback's open spaces at 4 in the morning, assuming that is, they had nothing to hide or conceal. But then again, no guard or activity just might mean careless leadership or sloppy execution by real bad guys. Ricky led us to the far side of the buildings, and we agreed we continued to observe until Ricky said, "Leo, it's time for your friend to start his work. You agree?" Leo nodded, removed his backpack, and took out what you might at first have thought was a teddy bear, but then realized it was a wombat. In fact, it was a robo-wombat, another of Leo's inventions. It was perhaps 30 centimeters long, covered with brown fur, and looked as cuddly as a koala bear. He had designed Willy Wombat for undercover surveillance, loaded it with tools and technology, and it was quite heavy. Leo whispered, "I'll first send Willie to check that nobody's stirring in the tents, then into the larger building. I suspect it's a bunkhouse for the gang leaders." And with that, the robo-wombat moved briskly away toward the tents on the treads under its disguise. Leo watched his progress on a screen the size of a couple of packs of gum and redirected it with a miniature joystick toward the large building. Arriving at the door, Willie sent up a small pole from the center of its back, unlatched the handle, nudged the door open, and silently entered. Leo's screen showed rows of bunks filled with sleepers. These must also be truck drivers. Let's try the smaller building. He tapped the joystick, turning Willie to close the door, and guided him to the small building next door. A 3-meter-long table surrounded by 6 chairs took up most of the room. 2 men slept on sofas attached to the walls, and a closed door was visible to the right. Leo guided Willie to the door, where he raised his pole, unlatched the door, and entered. The room contained only a desk with a closed laptop on it, a chair, and 2 empty beds. Curious, Leo mumbled to himself, and he guided Willie back outside. Okay, let's take a precaution before the next step. Rookie and I watched the screen as Leo guided Willie toward the parked vans. A small door opened from Willie's nose, and a small electric drill came out. The tiny drill bit silently penetrated the van's left rear tire. As it deflated, Leo guided Willie to the next, and then the next, until all were incapacitated. It felt like it took forever, but we thought it was well worth the time. The big excavator over there is still movable, but nobody's going to escape in that puppy. So, which of you two will come with me to find out what's in that laptop? I yielded priority for taking action against the gang, since Rookie had been in the belly of the Blue Beast. He had his preference. He nodded to Leo, and the two of them left the protection of the trees and headed to the smaller building. When they were near its door, Leo turned, aimed his joystick at Willie, and brought him a short distance in front of the building so I could see what was happening through his camera. I lost sight of the boys when they entered the building, but saw them coming out with a laptop and closing the door only moments later. They were halfway back to me when the cabin door opened. 2 men sprung out, one with a pistol aimed at Rookie and the other with a machine gun at his waist. Chapter 6, A Nasty Surprise. One more step, fellows, and it's gonna be your last, the machine gunner growled. Rookie and Leo froze. After a few tense seconds, Rookie turned to face them, and a spray of machine gun bullets swept the ground around him. If you want to keep your legs, bud, you'll leave them right where they are. And you there, what do you got in your hand? Tiptoe over here, real gentle-like, and hand that gadget to me. The guy shoved his pistol under his belt, and Leo did as he was told. Don't take your eyes off him while I check out this thing, the guy said to the machine gunner. He squinted at the joystick, then moved it around. His eyes jumped to where Willie was now softly banging his nose against the ditch digger's tread. You guys didn't come all the way out to this forsaken place to play with your toys now, did you? Leo and Rookie just stared at him. You know, bud, you look just like one of them we was after back in Adelaide. He turned to Rookie and said, You know, I thought by now there'd be nothing left of you bigger than a blueberry muffin. He looked at the machine gunner and said, There was a third one. Bet she's around here somewhere. Keep your eyes on him while I get a search going. He bounced into the small cabin. Muffled sounds of voices and movement followed. And he was back with 2 sleepy-looking guys with long-barrel flashlights and a coil of ropes, what it looked like that he had with him. How you guys can sleep after you hear a machine gun go off is beyond me. You'd better be awake for this search. Look first around those trees and bushes over there. Turn over every rock. Then extend your search in rings farther out. I'm betting that third one's here too. Now give me that rope and get going. He tied their hands behind their backs and poked Rookie and Leo toward a huge pit out beyond the parked vans. The two stared into what I later saw was a 6-meter deep pit in front of them. It didn't have to end like this, you fools. If the boss thought you two and that girl would just leave him alone, You could have been off playing baseball or something, but oh no, no, no. You just have to play the goody two shoes all the time and harass him wherever he goes in the world. You know, I might have been a bit sympathetic with you, but really, did you have to slash the tires on all our vehicles? What the heck? Did you think you were going to capture our whole crew here? And with no weapons? You're just stupid kids. You three must have more than a couple of screws loose. Eddie continued. Sure wish we had your girlfriend, too. The boss would pay a big bonus to be rid of all three of you. Then he started bellowing at the top of his lungs. You guys found her yet? Get your butts in gear. He waved to a white-coated man standing near one of the vans. Roll a couple of those berries into the pit. We don't want our new friends to be lonesome down there now, do we? The two searchers shortly later ran up panting, swinging their lit flashlights, even though the sun was now above the eastern horizon. Nothing out there, Chief. They must have come alone. Too bad, the chief said as he waved his pistol toward the guys. Since I told them we don't want them to be lonesome down there, throw that stupid fuzzy gadget into the pit too. Now shake the tents to get everybody out of their bunkhouses. They've seen blueberries bounce onto roofs, but I want them to see what's going to happen in this pit. It'll be like gladiators and lions in the Roman Colosseum. Chapter 7. Don't count us out. So, dear reader, you might be asking yourself, how did I, Tess, evade the searchers, and how did good old Tess know what was going on? Appropriate questions they are. You might think I hightailed it back to our camp in Blackie, but you'd be wrong. I didn't run away. I climbed up. Yep, I just grabbed Leo's backpack and climbed a tree. The two dudes searching did just what they were told. Yeah, but only what they'd been explicitly told. They turned over every rock and searched the ground as though they were looking for diamonds, but never once pointed their flashlights or even glanced upward. After I saw the whole gang was occupied at the pit, I climbed down, reached into a pouch on Leo's backpack, filled my pocket with pellets from his old invention, and grabbed a spray can. I snuck through the maze of vans closest to me and ended up not far from the chief. He had his pistol trained on the boys, and the machine gunner beside him remained vigilant. It was a strange, surreal sight to see a whole crew of white-coated men standing around a pit, fixated on two boys, with their hands tied behind their backs, with Uluru glowing in the morning light. The gang's chief was harassing Leo and Rookie and playing to his white-coated audience. One of you two guys ever been annoyed by the other? Neither defender looked at the chief or acknowledged his words. Hey, come on, you're brothers, right? This is the end of the line for both of you. So take the opportunity to get even. Who wants to push the other into the pit? Hey, if you don't push him in, I will. Rookie looked up. The chief waved his pistol at him and polluted the air with his nasty enthusiasm. Yeah, kid, you must have suffered somewhere along the line from your big brother. Get your revenge now. It's your last chance. My time to act had arrived. I wedged the spray can under my belt, filled my pitching hand with Leo's mini rattle pellets, ran from my hiding place and screamed, You're a loathsome creeps! The chief turned to confront me, and I hit him with a fastball of pellets. I refilled my hand and pelted the machine gunner with a sidearm. The chief's pistol flew and bounced on the ground like a jackhammer, with 3 mini rattles stuck to it. The machine gun caught a dozen rattles and bounded into the pit. The two guys convulsed from mini rattles that stuck to their belts. The gang around the pit seemed frozen in place. But just to be sure they couldn't grab the pistol, I tossed another handful of mini rattles onto the ground. When 2 of them white-coated guys ran for it, Rattles jumped to their metal buttons and shook them as though they were rag dolls. The Whitecoats backed away when I doused the chief with my spray can. He slumped to the ground and lay there convulsing. I timed to jump and landed on the pistol. After holding it with one foot and kicking the 3 rattles off, I picked it up, held it out, waved at the Whitecoats, and told them to sit down and face me. When they were slow to respond, I fired a shot into the air. Leo and Rookie dashed to me, raised their tied hands behind their backs the best they could to allow me to untie them without taking my eyes and gun off the gang. Rookie's knot was tight, and I struggled to free it using only one eye and one hand. I nearly had it and was about to take a deep breath when I saw stars and felt only pain. Chapter 8, Turnaround. I had forgotten about the guy who had been told to roll blueberries into the pit. He'd seen me disarm the chief when he was taking a blueberry out from a van. He grabbed his restraining bar, came at me from behind, and took a swing. The bar struck my shoulder blades and knocked me to the ground. The pistol flew out of my hand. I got to my feet as quickly as I could, but I saw the pistol pointing at my nose. The chief yelled, "Get 3 of those berries into the pit, now!" I'm done with these guys harassing us, and I want that bounty the boss promised. We'll finish them off, you two, he said, pointing to the 2 searchers. Strip off your belts and anything metal. Find every one of those stupid bouncing things and throw them into the pit. We all watched as the 2 white-coated guys pushed 3 blueberries into the pit. They rolled around, bumped, rebumped each other as if anticipating some kind of fun. All the Whitecoats' eyes were stuck on the 3 of us until the chief hollered, "Listen up! The next moment will make us rich. It's a good moment for us, but bad one for these 3. That makes it solemn. Solemn moments demand ceremony. We'll give 'em one, but only a short one. We'll give 'em a little song. Let's all sing the last verse of Australia's unofficial anthem, then get on with knocking off kangaroos. Croak along with me, will ya? Ready? Go! Waltzing Matilda, waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me, and his ghost may be heard if you pass by that billabong. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. Okay, now everybody kick a stone into the pit, and then I'll send these 3 down for the official end of the Blue Marble Defenders. I heard the stones start to drop, and I was heartsick. What a way to go. The chief walked to Rookie, whacked him so hard on the shoulder it could have given him whiplash. He aimed the pistol at Rook's belly and said, "Put your toes over the edge, bud. You're going first." Chapter 9, A Moment to Remember. Rookie dropped to his knees and bowed his head. My thoughts came to me like lightning. That's not like Rook. Why would he do that? Why would he give up his dignity to these creeps? The chief will just kick him. But then I heard it before I saw it. A boomerang. It sailed over the pit from the far side. It was so close to Rookie's head that it raised his hair as it passed. Then, contact. The pistol bounded from the chief's hand and dropped into the pit with the chief's bloody finger still on the trigger. A wall of war cries flooded over the pit, and indigenous Australian men flooded in from behind the vans. They forced each of the bad guys to lie on the ground. They were small men of small stature, but obviously strong because they easily knocked down the few white-coated resistors who were much bigger. When the roar stopped, nobody spoke. Silent anticipation built. A man walked out from behind a van. It was Domino Dundee. He too kept silent and looked back at the van. Pops appeared. He smirked at the sight of the white coat gang on their bellies and stared across the pit at the three of us. Tess, Leo, Rookie, satellites are wonderful things. Only a few hours ago, my brother Amerigo used his to spot you and the risks you faced here. We considered phoning you, but didn't want to risk alerting your adversaries. But if satellites are wonderful, people are more wonderful. Our friend Domino Dundee here immediately engaged and brought in his Anangu friends. He turned to Domino and nodded. Domino then explained that Pops had called him, landed in a small Adelaide police jet behind Kangaroo Dundee's establishment, and the two had immediately set out in a bus to the home of the Anangu, the indigenous people who have owned the land near Uluru since time immemorial. They immediately wanted to protect the kangaroos, and when they learned of you Blue Marble defenders risking your lives to protect them too, they jumped on the bus to join the fight. Domino applied a pressure bandage to the chief's hand, and then the Anangu escorted the whitecoats one by one to the bunkhouses and stood guard. The gang was locked up for only a short time when we heard a siren in the distance, and Pops explained that police from the National Park Service in Alice Springs were on their way and would take charge of the scene. Chapter 10: Relief from the Pressure. The police herded the gang into paddy wagons bound for Alice Springs jail, and we defenders then searched the two bunkhouses while the Anangu gathered bush tucker, the Australian term for wild food. When we left the bunkhouses with nothing to show other than the PC that we already had, we passed a group of Anangu eating their breakfast, and they handed each of us a few pieces of the food they gathered. Domino, Pops, and we three sat under the tree I'd climbed and noshed on our truly local breakfast. My favorites were macadamia nuts and quandong, an Australian peach. Relieved the danger had passed, the three of us really now, we were giddy. We found humor in almost everything as we filled each other in on the morning's adventure. When I started by explaining how we had approached the gang's camp, how Willie had investigated, and how we'd nearly captured an entire gang before my unfortunate meeting with the restraining bar, Leo couldn't stop chuckling and said, "My spirits were up and down so much I could probably have jumped out of the pit if they'd pushed me in." After the chuckling subsided, Rookie said, "I like the melody of that waltzing Matilda song, but I don't have a clue what it means." Domino explained. Waltzing means to go about on foot, and a Matilda is a sack or a cloth that contains the belongings of an itinerant worker or a swagman. A billabong is a watering hole. It's typically an isolated pond left behind when a river changes course here in the outback. They're not unusual because it's so dry and flat here. The context of the song is a sheep shearers' strike in Australia in the 1890s. And the full Waltzing Matilda song, well, it tells the tale of a swagman who steals a farmer's sheep when it comes down to a watering hole where he's sitting. He boils it and stashes the leftovers in his tucker bag, puts it into his Matilda, but then has an unfortunate encounter with the police. That's how it becomes a ghost. Again, Leo laughed, and he had trouble stopping. The song may be old, but I love that the metaphor still works today. This itinerant gang, the white coat gang, they come along, steal kangaroos, the defenders show up and put an end to them. Fantastic parallel. I love it. We all laughed until we ran out of breath. Pops changed the tone by telling us an Adelaide University team of biologists would arrive in the afternoon to liberate the blueberries from the vans and take them to a secure research facility. I asked if the government agreed to pay a ransom to prevent the gang from killing Ruse, and Pop said they'd been considering it in an emergency evening session, just as Amerigo had called him. Leo said, "We're certain Fun was behind this, but does anybody have an insight about where he could have disappeared to?" Pops replied, "I hate to say we still can't be certain he is here. We couldn't find the name of Fund or any likely alias at any port of entry to Australia, nor at an exit. Other than Domino having talked to a man with a goatee and the blueberry chief out there, the white coat chief that we just arrested, saying that he had a boss, we have no reason to think he's here, other than knowing this escapade follows Fund's modus operandi. The Alex Springs police chief, well, he asked him about all this, but that chief, he just clammed up. Now, my first quick check of this laptop, it gives us nothing either. The white coats seem to just play video games." I asked Rookie how he had the foresight to drop to his knees just before the boomerang came whizzing over his head, and he said, "Hey, I saw the reflection of a Red Sox baseball hat in the window of one of the vans and guessed Pops was here and might need a clear sight line to the chief. Say, who threw that boomerang?" Domino raised his index finger and said, "It was I. And all the practice I've been doing for the national competition coming up in September, well, it'll serve me well. Oh, and I feel a bit bad for taking that feller's finger off." Then he shook his head and smiled. "But not too bad." Leo cracked up again, and Rookie chimed in, "You can bet none of us were sad about it." Then he slapped the back of his hand and kind of like reprimanding himself for taking pleasure in somebody else's misfortune. Domino pointed his finger at Rook and added, "I'm sure the world is better off with that finger being down in the pit than on that guy's gun hand." Domino noticed several of the Nangu were standing and looking restless. He stood, tipped his hat. We thanked him again for his assistance. He took his leave and led his group toward the bus. As we four defenders walked back to Blackie and our camp, Pop said, "I can't understand how that white coat van could be so indifferent to the lives of both animals and humans. We accept that people believe and act differently, but those who don't value life, well, they're in a category by themselves." Rookie said, "Unfortunately, it's not rare for an amoral person to also be very clever, like our nemesis Funt. If Funt is behind this, and I certainly believe he is, we have to assume we'll be seeing him again. But I hope I'm wrong. Hope he decided to crawl under some rock." Just then, Pop's phone rang, and we heard, "Hey, Amerigo, thanks for your tip. The Defender team is intact, and we're heading to Blackie." "What? Oh? At the restaurant next to Kangaroo Dundee's Sanctuary? We're on it." Chapter 11. It ain't over till it's over. We ran to the campsite, threw the tent into Blackie's trunk, and headed out. I was the designated driver, or should I say pilot. Amerigo had spotted a white van similar to those the gang used to haul blueberries, but bigger. I brought Blackie down on the highway beyond Domino's gas station in order not to alert Fund or whoever was driving that van. We considered whether we should position one of us at the restaurant's back door, but since we didn't know how many of the gang there might be there, we decided to stick together. As usual, we didn't have lethal weapons, but it occurred to me that if we were going to encounter Fun, it would be nice to have a boomerang and the skill to use one. I suggested we all put our Red Sox hats on for luck. The others agreed, and that was a sure sign we were all feeling a bit nervous. We walked past the white van and were surprised at just how big it was. Was it possible this van had no connection to the white coat gang? Pops was first in the door and surveyed the restaurant as we three followed. Finally, we had an answer. Fun was seated at a large round table at the back of the restaurant. There wasn't another soul around. Rookie walked ahead toward Fun, who spoke as he approached. So, we meet again, my annoying adversary. And you there, the brother adversary. I see you brought reinforcements this time. To what do I owe the non-pleasure of this encounter? Rookie blurted out, "We're to take you into custody for attempted murder and animal cruelty, you slimeball." "Ooh, gee, I'm scared. No." "Hey, but on what grounds do you make such charges against a tourist who just finished his breakfast?" I'd never interacted with Funt myself face to face. I could clearly see another reason why Leo and Rookie viscerally detested this guy. Leo declared, "Your entire white coat gang is now in custody. You can be certain someone will be ratting you out any moment now. Maybe a dozen of them are already doing it as we speak." "I know nothing about gangs. I'm a simple tourist enjoying this great country. And by the way, I'm sure Australia has laws that will allow me to file a suit against you if you continue to harass me like this." Rookie was red in the face, and you can imagine looked like steam was coming out his ears. He screamed, "You tried to kill us more times than I'd like to remember. The party's over, you creep. Enough blather. You're coming with us." "I rather doubt that, you small-brained boy. You, your brother, and probably the other two with you have a great deal of moral outrage in you, but not so much in the common sense department. If I wanted to murder you all, why would I be sitting here alone and vulnerable? You might have used your head for something other than, place to hold your ridiculous Red Sox hats. Sorry to be so critical, but hey, you are unbelievably stupid to walk into my trap. Oh, and you walk right past the most interesting part of the trap. The part that will ensure there will never be any charges ever brought against me if the local yokel police ever decide a murder has taken place. Did you see my big white vehicle out there? Ha! It contains the most voracious eater of all the extraterrestrials I have ever encountered. And it hasn't been fed in the 2 months it's been on Earth. I bet its gastric juices are boiling right now. Ooh, not boiling, just steaming. Maybe not so different from the steam my friend will introduce you to. The swinging doors to the kitchen opened wide, and out marched a creepy man holding extremely large spray cans. Ricky shouted, "Hannibal Harpy!" "Oh, it's so nice to be recognized this far from Transnistria," the creep said as he smiled. This was the evil, brutal polluter Rookie had thwarted and caused to be imprisoned for dumping toxic waste into the Dnistria River between Moldova and Ukraine. He was 2 meters from me when he next spoke. I could smell his foul breath. "I'm happy to even the score with this rookie guy for wrecking my island, but I'm sorry I don't have time to get to know the rest of you folks. Your time on this planet expires in roughly 3 minutes. If you can't wait for the end, just take a deep breath." He put down one of his spray cans, pulled a gas mask from under his shirt, and started spraying the 2 powerful cans at the same time. The room quickly filled with fog. I felt my knees buckle even though my mind remained alert. As I collapsed, I could see the others go down too, and I saw Fund also wore a gas mask. As Leo had said earlier, the ups and downs of this day were astonishing. Sadness now, it overwhelmed me when I realized that not only was this day ending down as low as it could go, but all of our days, all of the good works of the Blue Marble Defenders might be ending. Creepy Hannibal pulled Rookie by his feet toward the front door. Fun was right behind him, pulling Leo. I couldn't turn my head to see it, but I heard the van's back door creak open. My terror deepened. Would they drop the blueberry on top of Rookie or just throw Rookie into the van? My thinking stopped. Hannibal now had my legs in his grip. He was dragging me to the door. I was next. 2 gunshots rang out. Oh, no. But then a familiar voice. Whose voice? I'm not sure. Hannibal dropped my legs and ran back to the kitchen. Fun ran back in the door and through to the kitchen. Andrew ran in. Andrew, the kind Adelaide policeman who had been watching the police jet. He had a bandana over his mouth. He ran to the kitchen, then back out and shoved the windows open. Then he threw me over his shoulder and carried me outside. I was now on the dusty ground, but it was heaven to feel safe. He ran back inside and returned with Pops. Leo was in the dust beyond the van. Andrew pulled him to the restaurant wall and propped him against it. Rookie's torso was inside the van, but his legs were dangling down. Andrew propped him at the restaurant wall and then came for Pops and me. The spray must have contained a muscle relaxant in it, and it was really slow to wear off. It probably took us an hour, and with Andrew almost continually having to catch one of us who slumped over. Pops recovered first, stood without help, conversed with Andrew, and then got on his phone. The 3 of us regained our strength at about the same time, and we joined Pops and Andrew at a picnic table on the side of the restaurant. Oh, we stared at each other for a while. Nobody was giddy now. We'd had Fund in our clutches, and we lost him. Pops reported that the Alice Springs police could find no trace of Fund or Harpy, not a clue, no roadblock, no success. Even Americo, who had seemed always to me able to do the impossible, he had no idea how they disappeared. With his teeth clenched together, Leo growled, "We'll keep searching. We'll find Fund. We'll put him away for the rest of his days, for 2 lifetimes." Rookie nodded, and he gave Leo and me a thumbs up. He kicked the ground. Then he put his hands on his hips, raised his head, grimaced, and thrust his jaw forward. He glanced again at each of us, threw his backpack over his shoulder, and tapped it. He whistled a tune, and then he sang it with gusto. Waltzing Matilda, you'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. And Fund's ghost may be heard if you pass the penitentiary. You'll come a waltzing Matilda with me. The end.